So in this lecture, we are going to talk about more plotting. We're going to talk about subplots. So that's putting more than one plot into the same figure. We're going to talk about three-dimensional plots. And we're going to talk about how to label plots. So you want some field for the x-axis, the y-axis, and the title. So let's go into subplots. So suppose I have some function of x. So let's just say sine x. Then I have another function which is just sine x plus some noise. Okay, so I can plot these individually, or I can plot them together. Or I might want to stack them up or something to see if there's a correlation between them. So the way we do that is with subplot. So we call a function called subplot, and it takes in three values. Okay, so the three values are the number of rows in the subplot, the number of columns in the subplot, and then which subplot you're about to plot. So since I have two subplots, let's say I want 2 rows and 1 column, and I want to set the first plot. So I just call subplot 2, 1, 1, and I say plot x, y. Okay. So now my figure has x, y in the first row and first column. Okay, so now I do subplot 2, 1, 2, okay, because I still have 2 rows and 1 column, but now I want to plot something in the second slot. And here I'm going to plot x and z. So now if I look at my plot, right, so you can see the two plots stacked up on top of each other instead of overlaid. So the next thing we're going to talk about is 3D plots. So suppose we have some two-dimensional data set. I'm just going to make it random noise. Okay, so if we look at the matrix Z, we see that it's 100 by 100. So the rows you can think of as the x-axis, the columns as the y-axis, and then the value as the third dimension. So how would we plot this? And so there are a couple ways you may have seen already from your math courses. So we can plot an actual 3D plot, so sort of how you draw a cube on a two-dimensional piece of paper, or you could use what's called a contour plot, which draws lines where the value of the function is equal. So we're going to do both of those. The first one is a function called surf. So you pass in the matrix, and so you can see the x-axis and the y-axis both go from 0 to 100. If you look up the documentation, you can set the x-axis and the y-axis manually, and then the height is the value of the function. So what I did just now is I clicked on this thing that sort of looks like a circular arrow. And so what that allows me to do is it allows me to rotate the surface plot. So now I can look at it from different angles, which could be very useful if you're doing data analysis. The other type of plot that we talked about is the contour plot. So the simplest way to call that is with the one argument, and that generates just a 2D visualization of your data. You know, the red is the really high values and the blue is the really low values. So the third thing we're going to talk about today is how to label plots. So far we've only seen plain visualizations. So let's go in, plot the sine function again. Alright, so I want to give this plot a title. All I do is I use the title function, a plot of sine x. Okay, so now if I look at my plot, you can see it now has the title a plot of sine x. Now I want to label the x-axis. So I'm going to label it with a very unoriginal label. Okay. So now you can see the x-axis is labeled. And you can do a similar thing for the y label as well. Okay, so that's pretty much it for labeling. Suppose I want to label a subplot. Okay, so now I'm going to create another function. I'm going to subplot 211 plot xy. Title is sine x. Okay, so once I do that, the first subplot gets the title sine x. Now I call subplot 212. I plot x and z, and I call title again. So it's the same function, but it's stateful. So it knows that I called subplot earlier and that it corresponds now to the second plot. Okay, so I call title again, and now my second plot has the title cos x, and my first plot has the title sine x.